Sumer, the first civilization, a story of clay, stars, and memory. Long ago, before pyramids crowned the desert and before kings ruled from marble palaces, there was a people who dared to rise not from conquest, but from imagination. They were not yet called a nation. They had no unified empire. But they built something greater, a blueprint for civilization itself. They were the Sumerians, and their story, lost for thousands of years beneath dust and myth, is where the world as we know it truly begins. The awakening of cities. Let us step into Mesopotamia, the land between rivers, between the Tigris and Euphrates. 5,000 years ago, this floodplain was a volatile mix of rich soil and unpredictable waters. It was not gentle. It did not forgive. But the people who came here were resilient. They dug canals, built levees, redirected rivers, and tamed the floodplain. From hardship, they pulled abundance: barley, dates, onions, garlic, melons, fish. From danger, they drew community. And from the earth, they began to build the first cities the world had ever seen. The names of these cities still resonate like echoes of creation: Uruk, Eridu, Nippur, Lagash, Kish, Ur. They were not villages, they were vast, organized, alive. In Uruk, a city that grew to over 50,000 people by 3000 BCE, the skyline was pierced by the towering ziggurat of Inanna, a tiered temple platform reaching skyward, painted in whitewash and blues, glowing in the sun. Each city was its own sovereign world, governed by its own god, protected by its own walls, and often in competition with its neighbors. But across these cities flowed a shared culture, language, religion, art, trade, and, most importantly, the written word. A day in Sumer, through the eyes of the living. In the courtyard of a family home in Lagash, a woman named Ninlil grinds barley under the morning sun. Her daughter plays nearby with a clay doll, its face painted with coal, its hair made of twisted reed fibers. The air smells of cooked onions and burnt fish. A man, her husband, returns from the fields, his feet caked in mud from the canals. He carries dates, wrapped in palm fronds, and a story from the temple: a new decree has been issued. A land dispute has been settled by the scribes. These people are not abstractions. They loved, argued, dreamed. They gave their children names like Enki is gracious or beloved of Ishtar. They prayed for rain, wept at funerals, and celebrated with wine and music. At the temple school, her son recites a litany of signs, the cuneiform script, scratched into a soft clay tablet with a reed stylus. He is learning to become a dubsa, a scribe. One day, he will record contracts, court rulings, hymns, flood records, and perhaps even a poem to a goddess. Cuneiform, humanity begins to remember. Writing did not begin with poetry, it began with accounting. Clay tokens once tracked sheep and grain. But as life grew more complex, so did communication. And then came the breakthrough, pressing pictographs into tablets. By 3200 BCE, these pictographs evolved into cuneiform, the world's first writing system. Soon, scribes began composing hymns, myths, laws, proverbs, recipes, medical instructions, and contracts. Cuneiform became the memory of a civilization and the beginning of history. From these tablets emerged the Epic of Gilgamesh, the world's oldest epic poem. Gilgamesh, the semi-divine king of Uruk, embarks on a journey to defeat monsters, mourn his lost friend Enkidu, and seek immortality. In the end, he finds no fountain of youth, only the wisdom that the legacy of a city, of stone and story, is the only true immortality. It was a message from the Sumerians themselves: life is fleeting, but civilization endures. Priests, kings, and the divine order. Sumer was both deeply spiritual and politically experimental. Each city was believed to be the earthly estate of a specific god. Enlil, god of air, ruled from Nippur. Inanna, goddess of love and war, reigned in Uruk. Enki, god of wisdom, whispered from Eridu. Utu, the sun god and judge, cast his golden eye over justice. At the center of each city was the temple complex, where priests maintained the balance between humans and gods. But as city conflicts grew, a new figure emerged, the Lugal, the great man. Part warlord, part king, part priest, he unified religion and politics, often declaring divine mandate. These early kings ruled not by iron fist alone but through law codes, land distribution, temple patronage, and diplomacy. Some kings, like Urukagina of Lagash, even issued reforms against corruption, among the earliest legal reforms known in human history. Science, math, and the heavens. The Sumerians were not only spiritual, they were scientific. They divided time into hours, minutes, and seconds, using a base 60 number system. They calculated areas and volumes, tracked the orbits of stars, and developed calendars tied to the cycles of the moon. Their observations of Venus and eclipses were centuries ahead of their time. In medicine, they treated wounds with herbs, poultices, and prayers. They recorded the symptoms of over 100 diseases and developed surgical techniques like lancing abscesses and setting broken bones. They made maps, bricks, boats, contracts, and songs. They catalogued the heavens while building cities from the mud beneath their feet. They did all of this before Egypt raised a single pyramid. The end of Sumer, and the beginning of everything else. By 2300 BCE, as conflicts grew between city-states, an outsider from the north, Sargon of Akkad, rose with an army and an idea. He would unite the cities of Sumer into an empire. And he did. The Sumerians were absorbed into the Akkadian Empire, their language gradually replaced. But their spirit did not vanish. Sumerian scribes continued to teach their language as sacred script. Their deities were worshipped for centuries more. Their stories, tablets, and innovations were passed from the Akkadians to the Babylonians, to the Assyrians, and even to the Greeks. Long after their names were forgotten, their ideas lived on, in every written word, in every law code, in every calendar, in every hour. Legacy, the city as an idea. Sumer was not just the beginning of cities. It was the beginning of what a city means, a place where strangers become neighbors, where stories become law, where the divine meets the daily, where time is kept, where memory is recorded, and where the soul of a people is shaped by their shared creations. The Sumerians were the first to believe that human hands could shape more than bricks, they could shape order from chaos, meaning from mud, eternity from mortality. They wrote with clay. But they dreamed in stone.